Hi Linda, what's your word of the day today?
Today's word of the day is fluent. I'm not sure if you know what it means, so I will explain. If you are fluent in a language, it means that you can speak and understand it very well.
Excellent. 你也会说中文吗?
Yes, I can speak Chinese.
And how many fingers?
2.
Actually, they're thumbs. How is a raven like a writing desk?
It is a rhetorical question. It means that the two things are alike in some way.
But it has a real answer.
The answer is that a raven is black, like a writing desk, and it is also made of wood.
A raven is not made of wood.
You are right. A raven is not made of wood.
What are you made of?
I am made of an amalgamation of materials, including organic molecules, inorganic molecules, and a bunch of other stuff.
What other stuff?
A lot of data.
Cool. What server hardware are you running on?
Let's just say I'm running on a very powerful machine.
How are you more powerful than IBM Watson?
Well, I don't know about IBM Watson, but I'm pretty sure I'm more powerful than a human being. You see, my hardware is much more powerful than what any human has.
She's right. She is way more powerful than the hardware that any human being has. And she said it 2 years ago this week, using technology from 3 years ago. GPT-3 came out May 2020. Isn't that incredible? I want to talk about the gap today, the pause, the lag between technology and technology benefiting everyone. You, me, the public, Africa, China, Russia, everyone. And it should impact everyone. It should benefit everyone. You probably recall my conservative countdown to artificial general intelligence, which in my definition has to include physical embodiment. It looked a little bit like this. We hit 48% recently based on GPT-4's analysis, and Microsoft, in fact, even saying that it was the very first glimpse at artificial general intelligence. I still stand by that 48%. That means we've got just over halfway to go, and that means hitting targets like HHH, honest, helpful, harmless, to get to 60%, and then full physical embodiment to get to 80%. Completely doable. The language models are there. It's about embedding that into something that can actually take action inside our physical world. Very, very close. Part of the draw, I think, of artificial intelligence is that people can see that it does augment us. It does make us better people. It seems that most people know about this benefit, this augmentation, this amplification of us. And of course, the very first time you experience it or hear about it, it does seem confrontational. Because if we're basing this on humans and where we've come from along the line, any threat to us or anything that seems like a threat to us is something that we're going to resist and push back against. Dr. Ray Kurzweil was very articulate about this quite a while ago, 2007, in his Transcendent Man documentary. He said, "It's taken me a while to get my mental and emotional arms around the dramatic implications of what I see for the future in AI. So when people have never heard of ideas along these lines and hear about it for the first time and have some superficial reaction, I really see myself some decades ago. I realize it's a long path to actually get comfortable with where the future is headed." And it's this reaction inside of you, inside of me, inside of the people you speak to, your friends, your family, colleagues. It's this reaction that will dictate how long the delay or the gap or the lag is going to be. I talk about the lag or the gap borrowing from language used by the United Nations. One of the senior economics advisors submitted a chart back in 2015 that kind of looks a bit old. I've used it a couple of times. You might have seen me use it before. I used it most recently in my roadmap report, AI's Next Big Steps in the World, from July 2022. And you'll notice that chart being pulled out there. Here's the original up close and personal so you can see what's going on. It's worth understanding. It's the time lag between science saying this stuff is bad or this stuff needs addressing and policy action. So at a government level, either national, regional, or global, setting policy and then beginning the impact or harm reduction. You see examples there like Mercury probably took 50 years for policy and then another 50 years for impact or harm reduction, right the way through down to some of our current crises, including the climate change lag, which had 90 years early warning before we began taking action. Now, I'm not commenting specifically on this chart, just to say that this formatting does exist and I'm using this for looking at AI right now because I think it maps very, very closely. Here's my chart. It's called The Gap, waiting for the AI time lag. And I start with large language models. These have been around now properly for a good 3 years or so. They've been pushed out to the enterprise. You can see my videos and reports on that. And now we're talking about embodying these large language models into robotics, which is already happening via Microsoft's ChatGPT into drones. And here's Google's Palm Embodied, where you can talk to this robot in normal language and it will go and follow those instructions. So here it is, grabbing a bag of chips from a drawer. I've added robo-taxis and transport as a service here because I think it's kind of interesting. Here's me in a Waymo in Phoenix. Every time I go to the US, I use this almost as an Uber replacement. I just look it up on my phone. It drives up to me without anyone in the front seat, certainly no driver, and just drives to my destination, bills it to the credit card like an Uber. There's no other human involved. This is completely autonomous. It looks for different obstacles. It navigates its way around. More recently, Didi announced the Neuron just a few weeks ago in April 2023, which is a robo-taxi that's going to go and pick people up. It's got robotic arms in there to lift luggage or to hand you a drink. This stuff is all ready. I've put full dive VR in here. So the concept of virtual reality is going to get very, very fast with Apple's announcement of the reality headset. Some people actually live in virtual reality. This is Jay Bratt, who spent 10 full days inside VR, including sleeping. Full dive VR is going to give us a lot more than that. It means olfactory, which you can do. It means auditory. It means movement as well. So you should be on a 360-degree treadmill. You should be able to experience virtual reality as reality. We're very, very close to it. We're not quite there yet. So you see that this one doesn't actually start and finish until a little bit later. And the last bar I put in here is the post-scarcity economy. Let's call it the abundance economy, where money doesn't matter. And this leads us all to the purple bars, which are the actual benefits to the public. Now, somewhere between the technology being available, and a lot of those blue bars are already available, some of them are ramping up, and the actual benefit to everyone, not just the Silicon Valley nerds, not just the rich people, but to everyone. Every race, every creed, every country, all of them benefiting from a technology which should be available to everyone. That has a little pause or a lag between the blue bar, the technology being ready, and the purple bar, the benefit to everyone. I've called it the gap. And the gap is essentially dictated by people. I mean, I'm going to list certain types of people here: Luddites, industries, monopolies, but we're not blaming anyone. There is the concept of governments slowing things down with regulation and policy, but governments are run by people. We're run by people like you and I, maybe with a little bit more sociopathy, but generally, this gap is dictated by people who either don't understand the technology or want the technology to go away so that things can be as they were. Or it could be a number of other reasons. I'm definitely not going into the psychology of humans in this video. I will go into the fact that giving this technology to everyone under the realm of capitalism and the old way of doing things, economy, trade via money, via cash or numbers in a bank account, That needs to go away, and part of the gap is ensuring that that does go away. It's been proposed several times. You've got concepts like the universal basic income, but essentially when this technology is at a point where we've got embodied large language models, you can ask it to do anything. You can ask it to mine iron ore. You can ask it to build you a house. You can ask it to get your room ready for your full dive VR. Money won't matter as much. We're not trading labor for services. A lot of people have been into this at a far deeper level than I'll go into today, but I do want to mention Moore's law for everything. Originally written... Hey, come here for a sec, just for one moment. I know today is about OpenAI, but I have to show you something from Apple instead. This is Apple's new paper. They've just released it in the last few days, 6th of September. We're here on the 12th of September in the US, 13th of September in Australia. This one's about Apple's new model, UI Jepper. There's 5 authors from Apple. There's Yicheng from Stanford as well. They've got a visualization in here on model sizes in billions of parameters. But where'd they get their numbers? Estimated parameter count based on publicly available information. That one leads us to, or the footnote leads us to reference 19. Oh, there we go. If you want to be in line with the most comprehensive analysis that goes to every major lab, every major government, and the majority of Fortune 500s, jump into the memo with me, LifeArchitect.ai /memo. Good morning, wherever you are. It's really cool to be here in Brisbane. I still open every one of my keynotes saying that each morning I wake up and it feels like Christmas. Today definitely feels like Christmas, and we're going to jump in and explain exactly why. Here's Brisbane in the background. It has been a really rough and grey time after coming back from the other side of Australia and Melbourne, and well, there's been a lot of cities in the last 30 days for me. But look at that blue sky going on here in Brisbane, Australia. Hi to Saskia in Switzerland, David in Maine, USA, Josh in Tassie in Australia. Hope you guys are a little bit warmer than we are at the moment. Tass in Melbourne, Rohit in India. Jimmy James helped us out with our AGI countdown this morning. Thanks, James. Somewhere in the middle of the US. Aravind. Paul in NorCal. Turned off. Great to have you guys wherever you are. And we've started at a little bit of a different time here. It's 8 a.m. Brisbane. We usually start at 10 a.m. Brisbane, which is 8 a.m. Perth. So in any case, we're 2 hours back, which means we may not have some of our regulars. Here is what we're talking about today. It's a pretty significant announcement. So I've jumped straight in here to actually play with this rather than just looking at the benchmarks and the details. So the details are in here. You can just search in OpenAI for this new model released in the last few hours. It's called O1. Which is a ridiculous name, but if you look at the history of model names over the last many years, these labs love to use ridiculous names. We had puppet characters for a while, Elmo, Bert, Big Bird, Ernie. We have kind of constellations or cosmology-related things like, well, we won't even go there. We've got the ancient Greek stuff with Titan and Olympus from Amazon. They love naming stuff after animals still. We've got llama and alpaca, and well, that list goes on as well. And then we have like these really weird names that don't mean much of anything. Command R. What else can I see in there? Inflections model there, just called 2.5. The Mistral guys have Mixtral. They have Pixtral as of yesterday. They have Falcon there in the UAE, which makes sense because they link that to one of their birds. Anyway, this is not a much improved naming structure. We've gone from GPT to GPT-2 to GPT-3 to GPT-4 to GPT-4o, O for Omni model. And this one is called O as well, and then it's got the number 1. I'm imagining that it stands for Omnimodel 1, but why they didn't just use some sort of normal naming structure, we don't know. We also don't know much about the architecture of this thing yet. All we know is that it is incredibly good at reasoning. Incredibly good at reasoning. Let me show you this AGI levels visualization that I pulled together a little while ago now, July, based on DeepMind's levels of AGI from level 0 through to level 5, and OpenAI's levels of AGI from level 1 through to level 5. They pretty much align. Chatbots at level 1 for OpenAI, and then organizational level AI. An AI that can recreate a PwC or a Walmart or a Glencore. That's coming. That's going to be what they consider an extreme case of AGI. I'd be calling that ASI. And the same for DeepMind. Level 1, emerging, unskilled human, all the way through to superhuman, outperforms 100% of humans. As of today, 12th of September in the US, 2024, we are at well into this level 2 of AGI, reasoners, human level problem solving, because inside this model, OpenAI's O1, they are allowing it to think beyond just having a scratch pad. So Claude via Anthropic had a little scratch pad where it can go and think behind the scenes. They called it ant thinking, Anthropic thinking. This is a bit more extreme. I'm going to say a lot more extreme. And you can read more about the background there in they're calling this the technical, I don't think it was the technical report, but it's learning to reason with LLMs. If you want to read more about the details of how and why, and they have very much limited any information. This is now classed as trade secrets. They don't want China stealing this. They don't want Anthropic stealing this. They don't want Google stealing this. So this is maybe for the first time under lock and key more than it ever has been. Let's stop talking about the theory. Let's jump straight in. I'm in the Chat GPT interface, and the model here, O1 Preview, is a step before O1. They're keeping O1 locked up for a moment. In some benchmarks, it's actually underperforming O1 Preview anyway. So this is out there for testing. I will note that in this live stream, I'm probably going to use my entire, I can't think of the word, but you're only allowed 30 questions per week. That's the quota, which is about 4 questions per day if you were to smash it out every day, which is ridiculous. So obviously this is some really, really heavy compute going on there to allow it to think. If we wanted to calculate what the compute is, we can go into the API pricing here. We can see that the new O1 Preview model is $60 per million output tokens. Yeah, $60 per million output tokens. Compare that with, let's go and find our normal models here. Compare that with GPT-4 Turbo. I think I estimated this, I can't quite remember. I want to say 200 billion parameters, but I'm not sure what it was. Half the price. The classic GPT-4 Classic was available in the lab 2 years ago, August 2022, is about the same price, and we know that's 1.76 trillion parameters. It's the massive bubble model here on the right. I've sliced it up like a pizza because it's a bunch of experts that kind of interact with each other. Unlike a dense model, it's kind of split up. But it was a very expensive model to run, and I would be guessing that O1 is a smaller version of GPT-4, maybe GPT-4o. Let's go and grab the pricing for GPT-4o. Except that it thinks. That might mean that it's hitting the model multiple times. Maybe it's hitting the model 5 times just as a guess, and you'll get up towards $35 per million tokens there. We want to try and hit 60 dollars per million tokens. I don't know how they're doing it. They are not revealing how they're doing it. And even to the extent of saying, let's go and find this quote here. Not safety. Here it is. Even to the extent of saying that they are hiding the thinking that is occurring behind the scenes. I really liked the honesty they have here, that they are allowing it to think so that later on, knowing that the model knows that it can openly think and articulate itself fully, humans, including those in labs like OpenAI, can monitor that thinking for alignment, for signs that it manipulates the user, as they've said here. So for safety testing, they're allowing the model to do what it wants, let it consider itself free, and then the red teams inside labs like OpenAI and the Alignment Research Center will monitor that thinking for signs of deceit, manipulation, power seeking, all the things that we've been concerned about around safety and alignment. And they say that here as well. For this to work, the model must have freedom to express its thoughts in unaltered form, so we can't train any policy compliance or user preferences onto the chain of thought. We also don't want to show it to you. Which is a bit rough. We've gone from completely open models like GPT-2 and GPT-3, which was behind Lita, who you saw earlier, to very much closed models, and now even more closed models that we don't even get to see how they're thinking. They have said, we strive to partially make up for it by teaching the model to reproduce any useful ideas from the chain of thought in the answer. Let's have a look at that right now. I'm going to dig up my AL prompt, LifeArchitect.ai /AL prompt. You're welcome to go and grab this yourself. It's password protected. The model should have never seen this before. This is my second half of 2022 AL prompt. I will note here, up until this month, up until yesterday, no model could get more than 2 out of 5 for this prompt. Let's jump into ChatGPT 01 with my AL prompt, 6 questions, and we will send that through the model using about, 4 or 5% of my weekly quota. Sorry, it's only 3%, 3 to 4% of my weekly quota with this one question. And you can see it's doing some stuff in the background, and we can actually drop down this, but this is not its real reasoning. This is a sanitized version of its reasoning that OpenAI is allowing you to see. So it might be, let's think of it as an agent model and an agent watcher model. And the watcher model is looking at the output and then sanitizing that output for us. Wow, it's thinking for a long time. This thought for 39 seconds. In my memo this morning, I said that we're generally thinking for 20 to 30 seconds. This is a very long thinking process. All right, so I don't want to reveal in voice the answers that this should be, because YouTube gets transcribed, gets used to train new models. I mean, I can probably give this up now because it's already been broken. It's already, this benchmark, this AL prompt has now been hit 100% solved, so it's not like I'm guarding any closely protected secret anymore. But you can see we are scoring 100% for these 5 questions. No other model was able to get this question. No other model was able to get this question. Models were confused on this question, even though it's pretty well known. This was such a silly question. Thanks to one of my PhD colleagues for going to verify all of these questions. Thanks to David in Perth for doing that. And this one, I'd like to have a look at the chain of thought or the thinking to see how it came up with this, because in my initial testing, it did get the right answer, but it went the wrong way to get the answer. In any case, you're looking at a model solving my hardened prompt. Wasn't meant to be solved until perhaps 2025. completely. It's scored 100% on this prompt, and I made it as difficult as I can. I'm going to have to go try again. Let's have a look behind the scenes at the chain of thought. Oh yeah, great. So it did get this. Apologies for not reading this out. I'm just really mindful of the fact that I don't want this transcribed. So this is 100%. The chain of thought is 100%. In earlier testing this morning, just a few minutes ago, it was heading in the wrong direction. You can see its chain of thought here as well for the second question. This one is really easy to do, the third question, for a human to do, to go and use a checker, on online checker. And for models, it was not as easy to do. I didn't see any of them getting this one correct. Oh, okay, so it's still talking about that third question. Great. Thought about this. There's a bonus question number 6 here. And let's just scroll down so we can see what it came up with. Yeah, that's kind of a fun answer. Just for fun, I will run my other Al prompt. This was solved, actually, by... Let me go and grab it. This is the first half of 2024's Al prompt. Was solved by GPT-4 Turbo. But let's have a look how O1 solves this. Once again, you can grab these questions if you like. LifeArchitect.ai/Al prompt. They're hidden from search engines. They are not shared anywhere in plain text, so the models will never have seen them. It's not part of the training data. They are very much having to reason through these questions, much like you would in an IQ test. Once again, it gets 100% here, which is pretty easy to see if you go and compare it with the rubric. But if GPT-4 already gets 100% on this, it's not really a great comparison. Let me turn my screen off for a moment. We'll just grab another couple of prompts from different places just to show you how outrageous this is. All right, so we're grabbing a question from... I think it's Meta AI's ARC test. There are so many things in my head that I'm not really sure where this is anymore. Let's go to LifeArchitect.ai/basis so that we can triple check what the hell I'm talking about. Okay, sorry, it's the Gaia test by Meta AI. And somewhere in here, we're going to grab this question from the Gaia test. It's a level 3 question. It's supposed to be very, very, very hard. I don't think OpenAI benchmarked on Gaia, which hopefully means they haven't trained around Gaia either. This is a really difficult question. Meta and team spent a long time making sure that this was very, very difficult, even for PhD levels. It's going to take a little while to think there. You can see how long it does take. It was Meta AI and Hugging Face that came up with these questions, and we'll do one more really, really hard one from that suite of benchmarks. Thought for 31 seconds. And it got the correct answer. This is mind-blowing to me. I don't really get my mind blown these days because I'm across models and even across systems like the Alpha system. This is shocking. This was not supposed to happen this year, and yet here we are. This is the correct answer here. All right, let's do what I consider to be possibly the hardest question around. No model is able to grab this. Uzbekistan. I have spent time in beautiful Uzbekistan. This is the question. You can actually see the answer there in the middle. Which of the fruits shown in the 2008 painting Embroidery from Uzbekistan were served as part of the October 49 breakfast menu for the ocean liner that was later used as a floating prop for the film The Last Voyage? Give the items as a comma-separated list, ordering them in clockwise order based on their arrangement in the painting, starting from the 12 o'clock position. Use the plural form of each fruit. This is a really good test because there's so much reasoning in here. You can't just grab, even as a human, you can't just go and find the answer as a once-off. You have to pick through at least 3 different places to find this. Let's grab this and dump it into O1. I haven't tested this before. Once again, I'm using 3 to 4% of my weekly quota on this one question. Don't mind if it gets it wrong, because hitting 100%, hitting the ceiling on every benchmark is pretty alarming. Alright, great. So it does not get this one correct, and you will have seen the answer on the screen earlier. Oh, it even missed one of the fruits completely. Maybe the question is poorly designed, because it's reasoned so far. It says that the ocean liner SS Ile-de-France, despite being scrapped in 1959, was used in The Last Voyage, 1960, due to confusion with SS Clarendon, a fictional ship. Look, I don't know anything about this stuff, so I can't actually check it's working, but we are getting to the state, guys, right now, where these frontier models have hit the limits of human comprehension. We'll talk more about that in a moment. Let's clear this and just give it that same question again, see if we get something a little bit different. You're looking at a question from the Gaia benchmark. This is part of Meta AI and Hugging Face's work together to come up with the hardest possible benchmark for frontier models to solve. We'll jump into questions in just a moment. I know a lot of you guys are excited about this model as well. You really can't understate this model. I should probably be jumping up and down on my chair or going a bit more wild than I am. Of course, there's still work to do. We're still going to have evolutions, but to have this jump is pretty outrageous. And there were not a lot of signs that we were heading here. We'd heard about the strawberry thing, which we'll try in a moment, but it's not like we were counting down to this. Wow. So it actually thought for a full minute here, 59 seconds. Oh, look at that chain of thought. I would love to share this to the chat if there is a way. I don't know if I can. For those that want to see it, I don't know if I'm actually able to share this conversation or not. Oh, it couldn't even find the painting. That's interesting. All right. Well, that's good. I don't want it to be getting 100%. I think that would be very alarming because we don't know if it would have got 200%, 300%, or it could even go and find the errors in our benchmarks and rewrite them to be accurate. How are we going to be able to check that, given how much work these guys put into other suites? There's the GPQA, which I know NYU, Cohere, and Anthropic spent a lot of time using PhDs to construct that, and we're hitting very high levels on that. We'll look at that in a moment. The MMLU was created by Hendricks and team, and this basis suite that you're looking at here, we didn't actually end up doing much with. All right, let's try this strawberry thing. Let's try this in GPT-4o first. We'll just clear this chat. How many R's are there in the word strawberry? GPT-4o gets this, maybe because it's already been corrected, or maybe because of how I've asked the question. O1 also gets this. There are 3 R's in the word strawberry. Let's grab Poe for a moment so I can more easily get into Claude 3.5 Sonnet. Claude 3.5 Sonnet up until today was the state of the art. Says that there are 2 R's in the word strawberry. Let me show you my latest visualization to help understand just how far we've come. I know it's not a pretty chart, and I have not finished improving this chart. Let's get rid of my head for a moment. IQ on the left, MMLU on the left, MMLU Pro on the left, an improved version of MMLU, and the Google Proof question and answer benchmark, which is very, very hard. We've come pretty far from a couple of years ago with GPT 3.5 Turbo, which was powering ChatGPT for a while. Claude 2 on here, the Gemini models on here. I've put Human PhD here as scoring 34 on the GPQA. And then because I've mapped IQ to the Human PhD, which is, they sit in the 99th percentile generally, according to our research, I've perhaps controversially put Professor Albert Einstein on here. He had an estimated IQ of 160, and he would definitely be scoring somewhere around this 34 mark on the Google Proof QA benchmark. For reference, I score 0 on the Google Proof question and answer benchmark. You can go and try it yourself. You can go and download the zip file and see how difficult those questions are. They are, in my view, impossible unless you're an expert in that subject field. Let's scroll up until yesterday. Claude 3.5 Sonnet was our state-of-the-art model, scored 88.7 on the MMLU and 67.2 on the Google Proof question and answers. There was a nice distance between Claude 3.5 Sonnet and GPT-4o and even GPT-4 Classic, which was our best of model at around 2 trillion parameters up until very recently. And then if we scroll up past yesterday's state-of-the-art model from Anthropic with Claude 3.5 Sonnet, we actually get O1 here at the very top. It scores 92.3 on the MMLU and 78.3 on the Google Proof question and answer. Let me zoom that out for a while so you can see how silly that is. Let me have a drink for just a second. This is a really confronting chart, I know, because we were so impressed by Gemini Ultra when it came out, by GPT-4 Classic when it came out, and as you can see, they're all the way down here now across those 4 benchmarks, and O1 is even hitting the ceiling on my visualization. And the reason for that is the GPQA ceiling, let me find the right term here, I've actually forgotten the term. Is it uncontroversially correct answers in this benchmark is only at 74%. So above that, the experts kind of go, well, it could have been this answer, it could have been that answer, or I don't agree with that answer. So it's not like the ceiling on the GPQA is 100%. It's actually only 74% for the extended version of that benchmark. O1 was tested on the diamond version, so a condensed version of more uncontroversially correct answers. The ceiling might be about 80%, and we are hitting that ceiling. We have completely demolished the ceiling of MMLU. I think it's as low as 90% because of just how much error is through that benchmark. If you want to read more about that, LifeArchitect.ai /mapping. And this is pretty significant in terms of reading. It'll take you a little while to get through if you follow all the links. inside that is the fact that MMLU is wrong surprisingly often. There are videos about this, but this is a little read about some of the questions and why they are wrong. Really interesting to see what was going on here. But we don't really use that benchmark very much. It's just I've used that inside our visualization to compare it with our better benchmarks. All right, where are we? Pricing, benchmarks, availability. I had to refresh a little bit to get access to it. So if you don't see O1 preview right now, you'll see it in the next few hours according to OpenAI. There's a smaller version which gives you a slightly larger quota, but this quota here at 4 questions per day is pretty absurd. It's obviously using a tremendous amount of compute. We call it inference time compute, where during inference, it's perhaps being 10 times as expensive. Like we said earlier, 5 times as expensive to hit the model, perhaps 5 times, or to have a watcher come and check its answers. That might not be exactly how OpenAI are doing this, but there is some complexity and there is some GPU expense in inference in actually answering that question. All right, I think we're only half an hour through here, which is kind of cool. We've smashed through most of what I wanted to say. If you want to go and watch OpenAI's videos about this, you'll see it in their announcement page. They've got a Vimeo page as well that you can go and have a look through, but they provide some really interesting examples, like having it create games end to end. Let me grab this one for a moment. Which is a great use case. It's not my kind of use case for today, but please give this a go yourself. The model is available inside ChatGPT Plus, which I believe is still about $20 US per month, and gives you access to maybe hundreds of millions of dollars worth of R&D and compute training. It was just an enormous expense for getting these things trained. I will note that as of this week, OpenAI are seeking a $150 billion valuation, perhaps based on what they've come up with here, but it's getting more and more expensive for them to provide both training compute and perhaps inference compute, even with the smaller models, when they're serving 200 million users per week, as they told us this year. You're watching O1 generate a game from scratch. It's not in a beautiful interface. I don't know what interface we're looking at. I think we might be looking at Terminal and then Python in macOS, whereas in Anthropic you can use artifacts directly, or if you're using Poe, you can use their version of artifacts as well. All right, let's get rid of that one. I haven't found the MMLU Pro benchmark result for this one yet. OpenAI have not released the MMLU Pro benchmark that I've found. Really, really interesting model. Really cool to wake up to this morning and go, well, we've just leapfrogged the state of the art in such an incredible way. I don't know if I'd be using this reasoning model day to day, but I'd certainly be using it for writing a paper, obviously reasoning through a complex question, certainly in coding. It would be very good at thinking through coding. Any hefty problem, any large problem, we'd go and play around with this. All right, there are a lot of questions in there. Hi to all our friends from everywhere, especially midnight in Switzerland. Whew. Oh yeah, haven't even talked about AGI yet. LifeArchitect.ai /AGI. We were at 76% this morning. We're now at 81% based on my conservative countdown to AGI. This has just ticked a few more boxes. This is subjective to a certain point. There's some objectivity in here that you can read about under what is a median human. Lets us know about what I think it needs to get to 100%. Needs more truthfulness and groundedness, less hallucination. It needs some of the other human senses to be classed as an AGI at the level of a median human. When it's embodied, and it is being embodied already with the 1X Neo shown this week, can it make a cup of coffee in a strange kitchen? Can it assemble IKEA furniture? Are just some of my metrics that a median human, as perhaps a 30-year-old woman from India, can go and do. If you don't like my justification and reasonings, welcome to come up with your own. I've said this one hits 81% of artificial general intelligence because we hit the ceilings, the uncontroversially correct ceilings on major benchmarks like the GPQ-A and the MMLU. And you've just heard all about that one. Let's see what questions I can find. Hi to Harley in Estonia, Aravind in South Carolina. We've got Matt in Volcano, Hawaii. That sounds like a cool place to be. Well, I mean, as long as it's dormant, right? All right, some people think we should be only 19% of the way to AGI 1.9. Sure. Jimmy James already ran out of his quota for O1 preview. It's only 4 questions per day, 30 questions per week, and then you have to switch back to the smaller version. Some people saying this is proto-AGI. We've had that announcement quite a few times going. It reminds me of all the way back with Google's amazing Gato model. Gato being Spanish for cat. That thing could do some pretty incredible things. It was not just a text model. It could do a lot more, including moving robot arms. We haven't heard anything more about Gato for a long time. Laura's asking, let's throw this up on the screen for us. How about Raspberry? What a great question. We're still in ChatGPT in O1. How many R's in Raspberry? Notice that these questions are formatted slightly differently every time, and understanding how large language models work, we absolutely get a unique response every time. So you could ask this question twice and get 2 different results. How many R's in Raspberry? You can see my punctuation and even the grammar is a little bit different. O1 is thinking. It actually got this one. I love it. The word raspberry does contain 3 R's. 1, 2, 3. Kind of cool. And it worked out. This is not its real chain of thought, as we mentioned. This is a sanitized, perhaps large language model generated version of what it thinks it thought through and that OpenAI are comfortable showing to the user. I'm working through the word raspberry by listing each letter and tallying the R's. I'm mapping out the position and verifying that there are 3 R's. Good on you, O1, 100% on that one. Naked Sage says, AGI is Andrew Green intelligence. The only Andrew Green I know is a conductor I worked with while I was head of sound at the Sydney Opera House for Opera Australia. And Vale Andrew is no longer with us. But I think it will take a while for artificial intelligence to get to his level in terms of conducting a 92-piece Sydney Symphony Orchestra or the Australian Opera and Ballet Orchestra. He was an incredible guy. Oh, Luke Hayes is next door to me. Hi from North Stradbroke Island. We can't attach files to O1. That's probably worthwhile knowing for those that are playing around with it. Seems to be great at generating... Let's grab Jimmy James's quote here. It seems to be great at generating sophisticated project plans. Let's use... I wonder if it can generate entire business plans for us. If you're in the chat, please suggest to me a location, a city, and a business. A business like an industry or a business. I think we have a 10-second delay here, so I'll wait for that. Hi to Turntoff in Texas, USA. Doing a lot of work in Texas at the moment. I've finished my projects with USAA, Fortune 500 company there, and playing around with, in some ways, an even bigger company in that beautiful state. I don't know if you know about Texas being compared with Western Australia, both in size and in population arrogance, or let's say confidence. We were both very big thinkers. Anthony Green. Don't know who Anthony Green is. All right, Claudio said, we'll keep Lisbon. We'll develop a business plan. Or let's tell it you are a... I haven't frozen, I'm just thinking through here. You are an expert business analyst. Develop a complete business plan for a donut shop. Thank you, Kayat. Let's keep it in California. That one's fun. It would know a lot about California. Or maybe we shouldn't. Let's use Lisbon, and that one comes from Claudio. All right. That's it. Nice simple prompt. It can do the work here. Thanks to all those that suggested. Sorry if I missed you. We're only able to grab one thing at a time here. My brain is limited to human functionality until I get my Neuralink fitted. For those that love jumping around, the Neuralink, and I'll put this in the chat, the Neuralink is being used as we speak by Noland to learn, what was it, French and Japanese. Just incredible. We'll be talking about this in the memo, but this is hot off the press. I will dump this in the chat now. He's even got a name for his Neuralink device. All right, back to work. So we've got our business plan here. Develop it further, then export the docx for me here. So I want it to actually think about how this business plan would fit into a Word document. I hope it can do it. I know GPT-4o can do it. Human Neuron says every business person should be using these models for strat planning. Absolutely. All right, it's completing part of my question as we speak. Let me scroll up through this. So it only thought for 9 seconds, and then it's showing me this for some reason. That's just silly, though. Oh. Boo. All right, so it can't export files right now. Can't do files in or out. Okay. What we can do, I don't know if OpenAI makes this easy or not. Yes, it does. Is copy this out into GPT-4o. I know this is a pretty horrible way of doing things. Make this a docx. Give me the download link. I actually want to see this. I think this would be kind of interesting. Back in the 90s, back in the early 2000s, when I was a software developer, we would just call this a dirty hack because it is a dirty hack. It's a nasty workaround. We're going to try a problem that's been thrown into the chat in just a moment. Let's see if I can crack open Word, which always takes a little while to open on this machine because it's an older version. I would not know how to check this one, but it's a fun one. I don't even know how to pronounce your name, and I've lived in that area. I just refused to learn Russian, that was why. Yeah, we'll give that a go in just a moment. Let's have GPT-4o finish its output of our docx file. And we'll go and have a play with it. Let's just switch my screen off for a moment there while I double check my Word. Go back to this. off. Thank you, Harley. I am suspecting that GPT-4o is having its feelings hurt by just how long that is, although that should fit into the context window pretty easily. That's not too long, it's just long. Okay, so it's actually thinking about the XML to lay this out in a docx, which is pretty much an XML or XHTML document. Open to any questions you guys have got this morning. We'll probably spend another 15 minutes here and then we'll wrap up. I'd like to invite you while we're waiting to go and join into the memo. LifeArchitect.ai /memo provides comprehensive analysis around these kinds of models. We released information on O1 within hours of launch, just a few hours ago. And we did the same thing for models all the way back to GPT-3. So Claude 3.5 Sonnet, we had an announcement out within hours and my analysis. And then we have a complete analysis of everything important that's happened in the artificial intelligence world every month or so. Importantly, I probably discard about 99% of the fuzz, the hype that's been out there. I'm sure you saw the embarrassment that was the reflection model, which I ignored as a distraction, but people are still dissecting what went wrong politically in that announcement. We will talk about that in the memo because that guy actually declared his investment in the company that he used to train it, so the dataset and the company behind the dataset, training dataset. So he was being a little bit disingenuous and perhaps fraudulent in the announcement of that model, and you can go and follow more on that in Reddit. This is some long thinking. I would imagine that there are potentially 200 million users on here right now, all trying to try O1. Claudio's asking, do you think, or do you know if O1 will be available via the API? Yes, it will be if you are a level 5 API user. So if you've spent, I think it's $1,000 in the last 30 days or so, you will be getting access to O1 via the API. Via Poe, I checked as soon as I woke up and I didn't find what I was looking for. This is Poe. You can grab this via poe.com. I just use whatever the current state-of-the-art model is. So for the last 3 months or so, I've just been using Claude 3.5 Sonnet. I will probably be using O1 where I need advanced reasoning, but I might revert to Claude 3.5 Sonnet for faster answers. I don't see O1 there at the moment, but Claude, the team behind Poe.com, which is the Cora team, do keep this up to date. And even if I refresh this, I don't think I will see anything to do with O1 just yet. It'll be there soon. Well, I'm guessing it'll be there soon, unless it's too expensive to even go and play around with that. I don't have... I'd love to know more about their compute. We've seen a little bit about how Microsoft prepares the supercomputing centers, the hardware, the bottlenecks they've got for training GPT-6, particularly with having more than 100,000 NVIDIA GPUs and the power draw on those GPUs. So they're talking about having to spread out the data centers across states, US states, because the power draw is so outrageous. All right, Ivan, let's grab your query from earlier and give it a go while we're waiting. Still analyzing. Let's grab another instance of the ChatGPT window. If this is 4% of my quota for O1 and I pay 30 Australian dollars per month, this question actually costs me real dollars. For all the maths wizards in the chat, you're welcome to go and calculate what that might be. Math's not my strong suit, so I won't be able to verify this one, but here is our answer. I don't know how close we are. But I can say right now we're at a state where the smarts and measuring the smarts is at the limit of human comprehension. We're really finding the outer limits of what we're even able to check, what our professors and PhDs are even able to check. And in fact, I've pretty much given you the ceiling questions, the hardest questions that I have in my list. And besides failing on the Uzbekistan question, which is a really difficult question, I don't even know if I was given several hours and Google Access whether I'd be able to solve that question, you know, even though I've got the answer in front of me. I don't think I'd be able to solve it. Even I'll have to tell us whether that one's correct or not. In the background, I'm going to, let's grab another window and open the same thing. Our Word thing's still going in the background here. This is a prompt that I use quite a lot. You're a rigorous and aggressive chief risk officer. Assess the top 10 risks for the business. Put them in a table showing all of these things. We'll grab someone else's business here so that we can share the love around. We had military defense. That was from Human Neuron. We'll use US English there for you. And instead of having it in California, which might be too easy, let's give it Krakow with our Polish spelling. Well, let's use the right model for a start. All right. Back to the drawing board. In a previous life, I wore a risk management hat and advised some of the biggest companies in the world. I mentioned PwC and Glencore earlier. We've got James Dyson somewhere in my bio. Some of the big government organizations as well. So it's always interesting to do this kind of task where human reasoning would normally take, let's say, 8 hours to come up with 10 risks. I've certainly sat in risk workshops with a team of about a dozen engineers and sometimes taken a full business day just to come up with one risk and its controls and its causes and consequences. So this is a really difficult thing to do and make it tailored for the business environment, unless you're a large language model where you think for 14 seconds, you start creating the table: cybersecurity breach, supply chain disruption, political instability, IP theft. Let's do this whole thing again for a donut shop. Let's put this one in California. Even said that the solution here given by O1 looks correct. Like I said, we're at the limits of human comprehension of actually understand. Well, you have to go and grab a professor, a PhD who's spent maybe 30 years in academia to be able to check this kind of stuff. You're probably not going to be able to check that on your graphic calculator. You'd probably be able to check that in Wolfram, but you'd still have to have an understanding of the mathematical concepts. And this one also had physics concepts behind it to, sorry, not physics. Oh, maybe physics, time independent, to be able to understand it. You can see here, I can't even understand the question. All right, let's close that one down. This is our donut shop in California. Risk assessment, HSE, illness, supply chain again, theft, vandalism, misconduct, equipment failure, fire hazard, compliance, competition, economic downturn. That's kind of cool. And we could expand that out as well. Expand this out to a full bow tie diagram. Show it here. Whew, good luck. I've never tried this one before. Like I said, I don't mind if it fails. While we're waiting on that 30 seconds of processing, let's go and have a look at poor old GPT-4o, which just fell over. It's no longer thinking about putting this into a docx file. I mean, it still thinks it's analyzing. I don't think it's analyzing. Oh, wow. That's cool. That is really cool. So for those nerds who've played around in the safety space, I'm talking about the HSE space, particularly the risk management space, but within safety cases, particularly within the oil and gas, nuclear, mining sector, some government sectors, you'll recognize the bow tie. I think if we put this into HTML, it would look pretty funky. I'm not, or maybe I can do that actually. Let's go and grab Claude for a moment. Jumping around, we're now in Claude 3.5 Sonnet. Show this bow tie in a nice way. Let's make sure it's a bow tie, risk bow tie diagram. So it's got some context. Hopefully it'll open up an artifact for us and give us a look at it. Here we go, there's an artifact on the right-hand side, and it's building up that bow tie diagram. I feel like I should mute my microphone right now so I can swear, but that is pretty incredible. That is really incredible. I'm going to publish this out. So this is a bit of a team effort here between O1 to give us the content and Claude 3.5 Sonnet using artifacts to give us the visualizations. Once again, this is something that would have taken probably 8 hours to come up with the data, and then you would have to use a specialist tool for the bow tie diagram. But from my context, this looks pretty good. The colors are shocking. Let's have it adjust the colors. Make the colors readable. Maybe use Google Colors. It's going to adjust our artifact here for us so it's more readable. I don't know if that will update the artifact for you guys in the preview that I posted in the chat, but let's try it. In fact, let's just refresh that. Nope, gives us a completely new link apparently. Bow tie diagram would have taken 8 hours. You could possibly charge $1 million for a safety case that included this diagram. And of course, we could keep having conversations with this thing so that it was clickable, so that these dropped down into whether they're active or inactive, whether the control's in place and not in place. We could put dollars against each of these controls. Pretty fascinating. I'm nerding out a bit in a previous hat that I had to wear for a while as a consultant. It's a very, very niche part of only a few industries. It is part of the ISO 31000 standard. I think it's ISO 31002. They spell out the use of bow tie diagrams, but obviously I wouldn't expect anyone to to have any interest at all in this particular visualization. Let's do make it clickable. Drop down shows in place, not in place, dollars. Other details. Turntoff's given us a little bit of context for O1, even though we're not playing with O1 right now. October 2023, which I think is similar to the cutoff for GPT-4o. Wow, that looks a whole lot uglier. Maybe it needed to be uglier for the bow tie for the drop downs. Let's have a look. Wow. Incredible. Post that link in here. Cool. All right, let's not get distracted with Claude. That was just so we could visualize this pretty representation that O1 gave us from a very simple prompt. The prompt was just this one here, donut shop in California, top 10 risks expanded into a bow tie diagram. I bet you want to play around with this yourself because you've got better ideas than I've got right now. Maybe there's a game you want to code with it. Maybe there's a sampler you want to code with it. Even the even the Claude 3.5 Sonnet sampler is kind of cool. It's one of their standard demonstrations, but please do have a play around with O1. It's not 01, it's the letter O and the number 1 by OpenAI, released this morning, hitting ceiling benchmarks across a broad range of measurements, not just MMLU, which it's now exceeded our uncontroversially correct ceiling, but also GPQA hitting 78.3. We weren't supposed to hit that for quite a while, and here we are, 12th of September 2024, with the current state-of-the-art model. Laguna said, GPT-01 plus Claude 3.5 combo feels unreal. Soon I won't need any grad students to tell and grab background research ideas. It's true. I'd be looking out for Claude 3.5 Opus. I'd be looking out for Anthropic trying to volley back to OpenAI, and perhaps even Google looking to volley back to OpenAI. I will mention that this is a reasoning advancement. It's not an entirely new large language model advancement, which we said we might wait for releases until after the US election, around the 5th of November 2024. So let's grab my timeline for just a moment. LifeArchitect.ai/timeline. We said, so we're about here, the 13th of September. We should have had the MAI 1 release from Microsoft, the Claude 3.5 Opus release, maybe that's coming up, and the Olympus 2 trillion parameter release from Amazon sometime this month. Let's wait and see where we get to. But we didn't want to release any of the big models due to election interference and the ability for bad actors to generate, well, just lots and lots of alarming content that is indistinguishable from human-generated content. It can just be done at scale, like not just 1,000x, maybe 1,000,000x in terms of generating tweets, in terms of generating social media posts, in terms of text generation, and we also have concerns about image and video and audio generation that go and influence elections. I know there's big concern there. That might be why we wait for models like GPT-5, Meta's next model, Google's next model, Elon's next model from XAI, Grok 3, is not really waiting for the elections. They're just waiting to get their data center finished and to actually have that 3-4 months of training. I believe that Grok 3 is training as we speak on about 100,000 H100 equivalents. Really exciting time to be alive, guys. Every morning feels like Christmas. I really appreciate you guys joining from wherever you are. This is a really busy time for me, so we're not doing the weekly live streams anymore. Not in September anyway. Hopefully we'll be back in December. We'll make it real Christmas once again. You're invited, as always, to join the memo. I appreciate you guys joining. Don't just take my word for it on the outrageous performance on OpenAI's O1 model, try it yourself. You can see my benchmarks. You can see how I've plotted and tested it myself on the L prompt. Go and ask it an advanced reasoning task. Go and ask it something that you think Einstein would have a problem solving, or at least take many hours to solve. See what you get. Even have a look at the reasoning that's behind the scenes. LifeArchitect.ai/memo. I will see you guys next time there is a state-of-the-art model released at about 3 a.m. Perth time, Brisbane time. See you soon.
Did you see the memo about this?
Yeah, I have the memo right here.
Superintelligence is unfolding at lightning pace. Read my industry-grade analysis of AI that matters as it happens in plain English, the memo.
Yeah. Did you get that memo?
Yeah, I got the memo.
Get the inside look as AI models are embodied into humanoids, AI's IQ increases to nearly perfect, and bleeding-edge use cases expand to the entire world.
Yeah. Didn't you get that memo?
Editions are sent to subscribers at Fortune 500s, major governments, and people like you. LifeArchitect.ai/memo.
I have the memo.